Daniel Grant steps into the bustling cafe on a crisp Seattle morning. He immediately breathes in the aroma of freshly ground coffee beans and warm pastries. Rays of pale sunlight glimmer across the counter, highlighting rows of glossy croissants and the gleam of espresso machines. Daniel wears a simple navy t-shirt under a worn flannel, along with comfortable jeans that don't hint at his true status. He's the founder and CEO of Bean & Bloom, a cafe chain beloved by locals for its community feel. Yet the smile on his face is tinged with worry. He has heard troubling reports about this particular branch, so he's decided to go undercover. There's no press, no entourage, just him, a baseball cap, and an eagerness to figure out what's gone wrong. He adjusts the cap to shield his face, hoping nobody recognizes him from the occasional media feature spotlighting his entrepreneurial success. The manager on duty, a tall man with sharp features named Eric, barely looks up from the clipboard he's holding. Daniel offers a casual greeting. "Morning, I'm Dan. I'm supposed to start training as a barista today." Eric's thin lips twist into something that resembles a polite smile. "Ah, yes, the new guy." He gestures impatiently toward the back. "Grab an apron from the storage room, then meet me by the espresso station. We're short-staffed this week, so I expect you to learn fast." Daniel nods, staying humble, and walks past a petite young barista who glances up, smiles shyly, then returns to steaming milk. A second later, he's in the storage area, tying on a black apron with the Bean & Bloom logo. His heart thumps with anticipation. This is a different approach than the suits and spreadsheets he's used to, but it feels vital. He wants to see firsthand what's happening in the cafe he poured so much passion into. When he emerges, the barista he spotted earlier greets him near the counter. She has light brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, a scattering of freckles, and a name tag that says Rebecca. Her voice is gentle. "Hey, welcome aboard. Eric asked me to walk you through the basics. This morning rush can be crazy." He gives her an appreciative smile. "I'm up for it. Show me everything." As Rebecca talks him through pulling espresso shots, she occasionally checks on the pastries in the glass display, restocks cups, and offers suggestions to a few hesitant customers. Daniel is impressed by how gracefully she multitasks. He also notices the stiff set of her shoulders each time Eric paces near her. The manager's brow is perpetually furrowed, his posture rigid. Customers seem to sense a certain tension emanating from him, even as he tries to maintain a polite facade. A flurry of people bursts through the door, forming a long line at the register. Daniel jumps in to help, carefully following Rebecca's instructions on how to work the point-of-sale system. Steam and the scent of espresso swirl around them. Suddenly, a middle-aged customer steps forward, complaining that her latte isn't hot enough. Rebecca rushes to remedy the situation, but the woman seems frustrated. Daniel notices Eric heading over, eyes flashing with annoyance. "Rebecca, how many times do I have to tell you to double-check the milk temperature?" Eric snaps, voice low but laced with anger. The customer glances away uncomfortably, as though she stumbled onto a private argument. Rebecca murmurs an apology, quickly remakes the drink and hands it over with a forced smile. Eric crosses his arms, glaring at her. "Let's not waste more time or coffee, all right?" Daniel feels his heart drop at the sharpness in Eric's tone. This definitely conflicts with the warm, friendly culture Bean & Bloom is known for. He wonders if Eric is simply stressed about staffing or if there's something deeper at play. He decides to keep observing. As the line thins out, Eric calls Daniel over to the espresso machine. "Look, Dan, if you're serious about working here, you need to hustle. We've got a lot of online orders piling up, and I don't want us getting a low rating on social media." He gestures at a row of sticky notes with customer requests. His voice brims with impatience, and Daniel nods calmly. "I'll move faster, just show me the best way to keep track." Rebecca quietly sidles up. "I usually group them by drink type," she whispers. "Saves time if you can do several lattes at once." Eric overhears. "If you have time to chat, you have time to make drinks," he hisses. Then he mutters something else under his breath that Daniel can't quite catch. Rebecca lowers her gaze and heads back to the register. The late morning rush gradually fades, giving them a momentary reprieve. Daniel notices the tension clinging to the staff like a heavy fog. There's another barista named Carlos who looks about college age, anxiously wiping the same countertop again and again. Eric beckons him over. "You're not paid to stand around, Carlos. Keep that pastry case spotless." Carlos nods, a flicker of resentment crossing his eyes, but he obeys. Daniel decides to step in and ask about the tasks. "Eric, maybe I can help restock some of the pastries or check on supply levels so Carlos can handle something else." Eric's jaw tightens. "I'm the manager. I don't need a trainee telling me how to delegate." "Focus on your station, Dan." Daniel stops cold, feeling a surge of frustration. A part of him wants to reveal his identity right now, but he restrains himself. He came here to understand the root of the problem, and he needs more than one confrontation to confirm how Eric behaves behind the scenes. He glances at Rebecca, who shakes her head subtly, as if warning him to tread carefully. He can practically taste the stress in the air. Around noon, a wave of office workers pours in, forming a new line. Orders range from cappuccinos to avocado toast, and Daniel hustles back and forth preparing drinks. Rebecca flits between the register and the pastry station, while Carlos handles pickup orders. The place hums with conversation and clinking cups. Eric directs traffic, checking his watch every few minutes, reminding them about speed and online ratings. A man in a crisp suit steps up, complaining that his sandwich took too long to arrive. Before Daniel can respond, Eric storms over. "Sir, we're doing our best, but we're understaffed," he says in a clipped voice that borders on rude. The customer narrows his eyes, muttering something about unprofessional service. Eric's nostrils flare, but he steps away. Daniel exchanges a knowing look with Rebecca, silently apologizing for the tension. Finally, the lunch surge fades. Rebecca urges Daniel to take a quick break. They settle in a quiet corner near a small window, where sunbeams cast warm patterns across the tile floor. Rebecca sips a glass of water, looking drained. "Sorry you had to see all that. Eric can be tough." Daniel's voice is soft. "Is he always like this?" He chooses his words carefully, not wanting to blow his cover. She hesitates, then nods. "It's gotten worse lately. We've lost 3 baristas in 2 months. They said they couldn't handle the atmosphere. Some left because Eric would threaten to cut their hours if they didn't meet his expectations." Daniel's heart tightens with worry. "That's serious. Why not talk to the higher-ups?" Rebecca sighs, eyes filled with resignation. "We tried. The regional managers said they'd look into it, but nothing changed." She glances around, lowering her voice. "Some of us suspect that Eric has a personal connection in the corporate offices, so nobody really pushes back." Daniel clenches his jaw. "What about you? Are you all right?" She shrugs. "I need the paycheck. My mom's medical bills are piling up. I can't risk losing this job." She forces a half smile. "Anyway, I appreciate your concern. But maybe keep your head down, or you'll get on Eric's bad side." He nods, the weight of the conversation settling on his shoulders. He's horrified that an environment like this exists under the Bean and Bloom name, which he founded to be a welcoming place for both employees and patrons, but he doesn't want to blow his cover prematurely. "I'll be careful," he promises softly. Then, remembering his plan, he offers a quick, natural call to action in a murmur. "You know, if you care about how things turn out here, keep an eye open for solutions. And if anyone else is listening, they should stick around to see what happens next." Rebecca gives him a puzzled look, not grasping he's speaking partly to an unseen audience. Then she notices Eric prowling near the pastry case. She stands. "Break's over, I guess." Daniel returns to the counter, replaying Rebecca's words in his mind. He now has a clearer picture: staff turnover, morale plummeting, and a manager who bullies his team. Around 2 p.m., the cafe experiences its usual lull. Carlos, searching for a moment of peace, stands by the sink, washing dishes. Daniel notices Eric heading over there with a scowl etched deep in his face. "Carlos, I see you've got time to wash dishes. That's funny, because I just noticed the pastry labels are crooked," Eric says, voice dripping with sarcasm. Carlos's shoulders tense. I'll fix them right away, he replies, turning off the water. Eric steps closer, looming. This is exactly why your hours got cut last week. You never pay attention to details. If you don't shape up, you'll be lucky to see 15 hours a week. Carlos' eyes flash with hurt. I'm trying my best, sir. Eric mutters. Try harder, or don't try at all. Then he swivels and heads toward his office in the back. Daniel exhales, controlling the urge to intervene. He looks at Carlos, who sets his jaw as though holding back tears. The young man wipes a plate, breath shallow. Sorry about the scene, he says, glimpsing Daniel's concerned gaze. Don't apologize. That shouldn't be normal, Daniel murmurs, feeling a fresh wave of anger at the manager's tactics. He wonders how many employees have endured these threatening comments and unfair hour cuts. He moves to restock milk in the fridge, deciding it's time to keep a closer ear on Eric's private moments. If Eric is genuinely crossing ethical lines, Daniel needs clear proof. The next few hours are quiet, with a trickle of customers. Eric eventually holes up in the small back office, working on his computer. Rebecca helps Daniel perfect his latte art, and the two share a quiet laugh when his first attempt at a heart shape looks more like a lopsided blob. At least it tastes good, she jokes. Their brief moment of levity is cut short by a furious shout from the back office. Daniel catches bits of a phone conversation. Eric's voice is muffled but unmistakably angry. He steps a bit closer to the partially open door, heart thumping. Eric grumbles about revenue projections, telling someone on the line that he might fix the problem by reducing staff hours even further. Then Daniel hears a chilling phrase. I don't care if they quit. We can always find replacement. He stops cold, pressing his palm against the wall. Any lingering doubt about whether Eric's actions are accidental or malicious melts away. Eric's threatening comments aren't just random outbursts. They're his strategy for dealing with employees. Rebecca appears, carrying a tray of pastries. She sees Daniel's pale expression and mouths, "Are you okay?" He shakes his head, pointing silently toward the office. She seems to understand, her face falling. Suddenly, Eric slams the door and steps out, nearly colliding with Daniel. Eric's eyes flash. What are you doing here? Don't you have work? Daniel clears his throat, feigning casualness. Just restocking cups. Sorry if I overheard anything. Sounded intense. Eric's lips curl into a sneer. That's none of your business. If you want to keep this job, stick to your tasks. Daniel's stomach clenches with disgust, but he forces a neutral nod and heads back to the front. He shares a worried look with Rebecca, who nods sympathetically. He wonders if he should reveal himself now, fire Eric on the spot, and reassure everyone. But he decides to wait for one more definitive moment, one that shows him exactly how Eric treats employees in their most vulnerable states. Late afternoon wears on. Several regular customers swing by, greeting Rebecca warmly, praising the coffee. Carlos organizes the pastry shelves, silent but focused. Eric roams around, eyes darting for any mistake he can pounce on. Daniel offers calm smiles to people ordering their afternoon pick-me-ups. Despite the tension, the cafe's aroma of roasted beans and cinnamon pastries provides a comforting backdrop. Then, near closing time, a woman with a toddler in tow steps up to the counter. She looks frazzled. The child tugs at her sleeve, whining about wanting chocolate milk. Rebecca tries to help, but the cafe is out of the specific milk brand the toddler prefers. The child bursts into a wail, prompting a few nearby customers to turn their heads. Rebecca remains gentle, offering alternatives and sweetening the conversation with a warm tone. The mother eventually calms the toddler enough to consider a different flavor. Right then, Eric strides over. "What's the hold-up here?" he demands. The mother flushes with embarrassment, apologizing for her child. Eric shakes his head, ignoring her explanation and focusing on Rebecca. "Stop catering to every whim. We need to turn tables quickly. You know how it affects our metrics?" Rebecca's cheeks burn red, but she remains professional. "Yes, sir. I'm just trying to help her find something that works." The mother looks upset. "Is it a problem that I want my child to be happy with the drink?" she asks defensively. Eric's gaze flicks to her with barely concealed disdain. "Not a problem if you make up your mind soon," he snaps. Daniel sees the customer's face fall. He can practically feel the entire atmosphere drop 10 degrees. He steps in, voice firm. "Ma'am, please take your time. I'll be glad to help you myself." Eric clenches his jaw, glaring daggers at Daniel. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. Rebecca quietly finishes brewing a small mocha, offering it to the mother with a reassuring smile. "We can make adjustments if your child wants it less sweet," she says softly. The mother pays and leaves, looking rattled. Eric folds his arms, preparing to lash out, but Daniel can't stand by any longer. He exchanges a meaningful glance with Rebecca and Carlos, who each appear exhausted from walking on eggshells all day. Eric focuses on Daniel. "You want to explain why you just contradicted my instructions in front of a customer?" Daniel stops him with a raised hand. "Eric, I think you're going too far." "Excuse me?" Eric's voice drops ominously. Daniel forces a calm tone, though his heart pounds. "I've watched you berate employees, threaten to cut hours, and even snap at a struggling mother. That's not how Bean and Bloom should treat anyone." Eric scoffs. "Oh, you think you understand the business? You're just a trainee." Daniel's voice rises slightly. "No, I'm not just a trainee. My name is Daniel Grant. I'm the CEO and founder of Bean and Bloom." He takes off his cap, letting Eric stare at his face. A collective hush envelops the cafe, with Rebecca covering her mouth in shock and Carlos frozen by the pastry case. Eric's face pales, then flushes red. I didn't know." Daniel steps forward. "I came here undercover because I've been hearing complaints about this location. Now I see why. The way you speak to customers is bad enough, but your threatening comments toward the staff are unacceptable." Eric stammers. "They're lazy. I had to push them or we'd fall behind." Daniel's expression hardens. "That's no excuse for bullying. Bean and Bloom was created to be a friendly place, both for employees and customers. You've turned it into a toxic environment." Rebecca and Carlos watch, hearts racing, as Eric tries to salvage the situation. "Look, I can change. I was just under pressure." Daniel shakes his head. "This is beyond a quick fix. I've heard you on the phone, talking about cutting people's hours to force them out. I've witnessed how you speak to your team. Effective immediately, you're relieved of your position. We'll arrange the necessary paperwork, but you're no longer employed at Bean and Bloom." For a moment, Eric stands rooted to the spot, fury and panic battling in his eyes. Then he storms to the back office, presumably to gather his belongings. Rebecca and Carlos exchange stunned glances. The few customers who remain stare at the scene, wide-eyed. Daniel exhales, shoulders loosening as the weight of the confrontation lifts. He turns to Rebecca and Carlos. "I'm sorry it took me so long to address this. If either of you wants to leave, I understand. But I'd appreciate it if you stayed. We'll get a temporary manager in, and I'll oversee the transition personally." Carlos releases a breath he seems to have been holding all day. "I'd like to stay. I actually love working with coffee. I just couldn't handle Eric's intimidation." Rebecca nods, tears glinting in her eyes. "Thank you. It feels like a huge weight just fell off my shoulders." Daniel gives them both a small smile. "We'll fix this place. Make it match the vision I had when I founded Bean and Bloom. You deserve a safe, supportive workplace." By the time the cafe closes, Eric is gone without a word of goodbye. Rebecca, Carlos, and Daniel work together to tidy up, sharing relieved laughter at small jokes that never would have flown under Eric's watchful glare. They talk about new strategies for handling rushes, ways to keep track of orders without turning the atmosphere tense, and how to better connect with each customer. Before they lock up, Daniel invites them for a short meeting the following morning to discuss updated policies and maybe schedule some skill-building sessions. "By the way," Daniel adds softly, setting down the last tray of pastries, "for anyone who's been following this journey, consider subscribing to stay updated on how we turn Bean and Bloom around. Let's keep each other informed. We'll make sure no cafe in this chain ever becomes toxic again. Rebecca smiles, and Carlos nods eagerly. Daniel flicks off the lights, stepping out into the crisp Seattle night. He looks up at the stars overhead, feeling the cool air on his cheeks, and experiences a rush of gratitude. Yes, the day was tense. Yes, he had to make a tough decision by firing Eric on the spot. But he can practically see the relief in Rebecca's and Carlos's faces, feel the renewed sense of hope that tomorrow will be better. The following morning, Daniel arrives early, personally preparing a welcome tray of fresh pastries for his staff. Rebecca walks in, eyes lighting up at the display. Carlos steps in shortly after, excited to see how the day unfolds without Eric's scowling presence. They talk about brainstorming ways to improve efficiency without sacrificing humanity. Daniel suggests adding a tip-sharing policy so every team member feels rewarded, and implementing a short midday break schedule to prevent burnout. He even plans to offer managerial training to staff who show potential leadership traits, like Rebecca, who's proven she can handle multiple tasks with grace and empathy. Over time, Bean and Bloom transforms. Customers sense the shift, praising the newfound warmth behind the counter. Rebecca's mother recovers enough that Rebecca can finally reduce some of her extra hours. Carlos decides to pursue advanced barista competitions, proud of the support he now receives. Daniel, never one to simply vanish into a corporate office, continues dropping by as a hands-on CEO, making sure no manager forgets the values that define his cafe chain. And so the lesson lingers in the air, like the comforting scent of freshly brewed coffee. Treat employees with respect. Build them up instead of tearing them down. Every latte poured should come with a dose of kindness, because people are the heart of any business. Daniel, stepping out of the cafe one afternoon, breathes in the crisp air again, grateful to witness the redemption of this store. He knows there's still much work to do, but at least one corner of the city now feels a bit brighter. And no one here will forget the day an undercover CEO served coffee, uncovered the truth, and set things right.